My name is Kina Leclerc and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kina Leclerc et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. Before we begin, a quick reminder to place yourself on mute until I invite you to speak or to ask your question. Available for questions from the media, we have disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons in council chambers, Mayor, le maire, Jim Watson, Steve Kanellakos, City Manager, Directeur municipal, Wendy Stephenson, Chief Financial Officer, Chef des Finances. Phoning in today, we have Dan Chenier, General Manager, Cultural and Facility Services, Directeur Général, Service des loisirs et de la culture et des installations. Donna Gray, General Manager, Community and Social Services, Directrice Générale, Services sociaux et communautaires. Stephen Willis, General Manager, Planning, Infrastructure and Economic Development, Service de la planification, de l'infrastructure et du développement économique. Kevin Wiley, General Manager, Public Works and Environmental Service, Directeur Général, Service des travaux publics. Valerie Turner, General Manager, Innovative Client Services, Directrice Générale, Service novateur pour la clientèle. Rick O'Connor, City Clerk, Office of the City Clerk, Greffier municipal, Bureau du Greffier municipal. Kim Mayotte, General Manager, Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général, Service de protection et d'urgence. René Amilcar, General Manager, Transit Services, Directrice Générale, Service de transport en commun. Dr. Vera Etches, Medical Officer of Health, Médecin-chef en santé publique. And Danielle McDonald, Chief Executive Officer, Ottawa Public Library, Directrice Générale, Bibliothèque publique d'Ottawa. I will now invite each agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. Par ordre alphabétique, j'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question.
And I'd like to invite everybody to ask a question.
Please try phoning in or contact media relations. We will now start with CBC Ottawa. Do we have Kate or Joanne on the line? Okay, moving on, we will go to City News. Do we have Danielle Dubé on the line?
Hello. I believe that's what Alex usually does.
Thank you.
Tried my best. I was told to do that, but yes, thank you very much for having me. This one's for Dr. Vera Etches. Given the rise of the Omicron variant, Ottawa's increasing case count, what concerns are present in the city at this time?
Thank you for your question. I am concerned about the level of COVID in our community right now because of the trend, the rapid rise that we're seeing this week in the numbers of people between the ages of 5 and 11 who are testing positive for COVID. We have seen from experience that this rise leads to rises in other age groups and can result in hospitalizations and unfortunately death. It's the social disruption that we're seeing right now, the number of outbreaks in elementary schools, the number of extracurricular activities that are being impacted. And it really is about this population that's not vaccinated and the number of close contacts that people are having. So I'm worried. I think the time to take a look at how we can turn this around and decrease COVID transmission is now. So specifically, what I would like to ask people to do is to pause and to think about putting limits on those activities where you're in contact with others who are not immunized, indoors, where masks aren't used, and to limit those activities. I'm concerned if we don't, that we will see the rates continue to affect holiday plans, can lead to needs for greater measures. So this is with Delta, and we still have the unknown of Omicron as well. Again, I think these are things in our control we can do now.
And my follow-up questions, you did mention, our holiday plans can be affected if we're thinking, everyone's gathering indoors and then you have New Year's Eve coming up. Everyone wants that midnight kiss. What are we know that washing hands and the same kind of
what you can do, what's most important is make sure you're gathering with people who are vaccinated. Make sure you are vaccinated. That is good protection against having to be admitted to an intensive care unit. And so for younger children, 5 to 11, we have a lot of capacity still to immunize children now. So don't wait. And I think for those also who are coming eligible for booster shots, I want to be very clear that booster shot is recommended. It is something that is worth seeking out for that added protection. This is now clearly being recommended. We see the added value, and people are talking about needing that extra boost also if we were to face more Omicron. The other things people can do, yes, I know you were starting to talk about like washing your hands. Those are the basic things, but I think about it as the 3 C's. It's the simplest thing: avoid crowds, avoid closed spaces where there's not a lot of ventilation, and avoid close contact. The number of people that are right with us without masks on, without distancing, we need to be careful with how many people that is still.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Joanne, are you on the line now?
I am now. I'm not going to take it personally. I always can't get in. I have to reset in. And I'm sorry, we're vacuuming here. So I hope you can hear me. It's for Mayor Jim Watson. Mayor Watson, not a surprise that we got a 3% increase today. As you say, you're predictable. You live up to your promises. So that's what we saw today. But we also heard a lot of people talk at council today about approaching police funding, climate funding, transit funding in a different way. And I'm wondering if you can speak to whether you think there is maybe a different way of running the city going forward.
Well, the biggest challenge, Joanne, that we have and any public body has these days, particularly in the midst of COVID, is first of all, people want stability and they want predictability. And that's why for the 12th year in a row, I was very pleased that my colleagues on council on a 2-to-1 basis voted for our budget that capped the tax increase at 3%, which was the commitment I made a few years ago. The challenge we have is that during these difficult times where we don't know from one day to the next literally what's going to happen with COVID, we have to be prudent, and that's why I didn't support some of the motions that would have raided our reserve funds, which are our rainy day funds to deal with the operations of the city, should we not receive funding from the other orders of government. So while there's always going to be criticism about budgets, I know it's always easy to oppose than propose something. I think it's our responsibility as elected officials who have the stewardship of the taxpayers' money to be as prudent and as responsible as possible. And that means listening to our staff who have expertise, our treasurer, our city manager, and to ensure that we are providing the basic services at a reasonable cost. There were many motions, as you know, if you added up all of these motions, would have brought the tax increase to 5, 6, 7%. And given the fact that inflation is running at over 4%, the highest in 2 decades, now is not the time to further burden individual homeowners or people who are renters with an additional burden on their backs. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess my follow-up, Mayor, is this is your 12th successful budget, longest running, I don't know what the term now, but you're the longest standing mayor in Ottawa. And here we are mid-December. I'm wondering if you're going to tell us whether you're going to run next year. Thanks.
Yes, I am going to tell you, and I'll let you know sometime before December 31st. So I know that probably doesn't please you too much, but I've made a commitment that I would make my decision by the end of December, and I still hold to that. And
Thank you very much. We'll now be going to Josh Pringle at CTV Ottawa.
Thank you very much. My question's for Mayor Watson. Councillor McKenney said that this was probably the worst budget that they have seen in at least the 8 years they've been on council. Diane Dean's called the budget underwhelming. What's your response to people who are questioning or saying that we're not meeting the needs of the city with this budget?
I think there were some of the same people that said it was the worst budget last year, so there is that consistency. I don't share that view. I think it's a very solid, progressive budget where we're investing and helping those individuals who have suffered greatly as a result of the pandemic, whether through losing their jobs or mental health issues that they're dealing with. I think what we tried to do is to make sure that the budget is affordable. As I said, it's always easy to spend someone else's money. But at the end of the day, every single motion that comes forward under our rules required an offset. And there were very few motions that had offsets that wanted to spend large amounts of money, and in some instances, raid the reserve funds, which would have left us financially very vulnerable on a go-forward basis as we head into 2022, not knowing what is going to happen with the pandemic. It is still changing literally by the day, as we saw the latest variant come forward last week. So there's always room for improvement, but again, when I meet with certain councillors, they often have a long list of spending, but no idea whatsoever to reduce costs. And as you know, on a ledger sheet, you have to have revenue in and revenue out, and you can't simply build up and up. And I'll just give you an example. There was one councillor in the old City of Ottawa used to pander to every group that came forward, always saying that they would support more money, they would never vote for a cut, then vote against the budget, and then go out and proudly boast that we brought in a low tax increase, and a whole list of projects, pet projects that were approved in the budget were celebrated by this individual council who did none of the heavy lifting to get us to a balanced budget or a tax freeze, as was the case back in the old City of Ottawa. So, it's the old expression is you can't have it both ways. You can't simply go out and celebrate all of the great initiatives in the budget and then vote against the budget. So, my certainly lesson from the last 12 years is that we need that fiscal discipline, because it's far too easy to simply say yes to a group of people that shows up demanding more money. But at the end of the day, the money comes from taxpayers, and we have to respect the fact that we cannot push them, many of them living on the edge, not being able to make mortgage payments or rent payments. And we have to be respectful that we don't want to push more people into poverty. We have very good programs at the City of Ottawa, probably some of the best in the country when it comes to helping our vulnerable. No charge transit for seniors on Wednesdays and Sundays, the Equipass and the Equifare for those people low income, the Community Pass, for instance, very, very deep discounts. We authorize the issuance of 2,000 free no charge passes for people living in shelters as well. This is a very thoughtful, balanced, and compassionate budget, but that is also economically sustainable and feasible, because our staff are very good at being very small c fiscally conservative when it comes to estimating revenue from other governments or expenditures. And I think that is needed in a large $4.1 billion budget. You have to be compassionate, but you also have to have ways to pay for those programs for those most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
No follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Nous allons maintenant passer à Julien Paquette à le droit.
We'll give the floor now to Julien Paquette, Le Droit. Thank you so much. Good evening. I don't know who will answer my question. I would like to go back on one motion. This was a Catherine McKinney's motion. Allocation of revenues from the federal gas tax. I didn't really quite understand what was said during the meeting today. So how are we going to use that tax? I think it's $9 million, a couple of $1 million. Is it for the transit operation budget? I will start to answer, and then Wendy will follow up. Julien, you're right. We have a policy at the City of Ottawa. So the policy at the City of Ottawa is to use some funds coming from the federal government and to use these funds for transit, especially the light rail service. So we've planned the third phase of the light train, LTR, but we do not have the fund to proceed with the construction of phase 3. It will deserve the Canada, Stittsville, and Barrhaven. We will be using this type of fund to help with expenses that are not supported, such as the soft costs that we have, such as the system design programs. Then the other two levels of government are paying for the construction of the transit system, and we take care of the other costs. Thank you so much. Can you talk in English?
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I answer in English?
Yeah,
Yes.
just to add to what the mayor is saying, we were granted some time, I'm going to say much needed time to be able to review that one-time payment along with our long-range financial plan that we're doing for transit. That we could bring forward to the Finance and Economic Development Committee in Q2 of 2022. And what we're going to be doing is really looking at that 10-year lens in terms of what are all those capital investments that we need to make. And we're going to put the lens of this extra payment, this one-time payment that we have received. So I think the mayor talked about some of those things that are coming down the line in terms of stage 3. And we have some costs that will not be covered by other levels of government. So we have to really take a deep look at that and then report back. Thank you.
Parfait. C'est tout pour moi ce soir. Merci.
Thank you so much.
We'll now be going to John Willing at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hey, Kina, thank you. Question for Mayor Watson. How do you view the price of taking OC Transport right now? I guess not now because it's free, but in the new year with the new rates. And do you believe it's become too expensive for just the average Ottawa transit customer?
Sorry, John, I didn't catch the first.
Yeah, just simply if you think that the price of OC Transport fares are just too expensive right now.
Well, as you know, we have introduced a number of initiatives to help those in our community that do require some financial assistance, include seniors, the UPass program that is a deep discount, as well as the Equipass, the Communipass, and the passes that are going to be handed out to shelters for no charge transit whatsoever. This month, for instance, pass holders that represent about 70% of riders are saving $122 as a result of the no charge program for the month of December. Unfortunately, we don't live in isolation at the City of Ottawa. We have to deal with increased gas prices for our buses, and we buy a lot of diesel, as you know. The cost of electricity for our trains, the cost of labor settlements that we reach that are reasonable but have to be accounted for. So it's always easy to promise, free everything. But at the end of the day, it's really not free because you have to cut somewhere else or you have to add to the tax burden. And I think what I've tried to do over the last 12 years is to be upfront and pragmatic with people. And, sometimes it's like that old expression, it's like Listerine, you don't like to use it, but it works. I like to be blunt with people and not try to sugarcoat the fact that we have limitations that we can place on our taxpayers. And I would love to be able to go out and promise free rent, free hydro, free housing. Unfortunately, that's not living in the world we live in, where we have to pay our bills and we have to respect the capacity of our taxpayers to foot the bill. So what I've tried to do is bring forward a thoughtful budget that is both financially responsible and compassionate. Can we do more on every single every line item in the budget? Of course we could, but that requires us to go back to the public and ask them for even more money. We can't constantly rely on the other levels of government. We have to be as self-sufficient as possible. And we were grateful for the support that we did receive that allowed us to balance the books each and every year during the pandemic. And we again look forward to that support for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Wendy Stephenson. And Wendy, I don't know if you have this information at hand, but do you have a sense of how our fare box recovery ratio stacks up with other urban transit services in Canada right now?
John, that's a great question. I don't have that information, but I can liaise with my transit partners. I know Renee is on the line. If she has it, then I'll just ask her to jump in. But if we don't have it, we can get it for you.
John, unfortunately, I don't have it on hand either, but I know that the ratio in Ottawa is higher than Montreal for sure, but I don't have the exact amount. So we can join you maybe lately for that.
Thank you.
We'll follow up with you tomorrow on this, John. Okay, so moving on, we will be going to Catherine Maras, Radio-Canada. Est-ce que tu es sur la ligne?
Oui, je suis là.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I have a question for Mayor Watson. I would like to have your answer in French because many critics were said today.
Excusez-moi, qu'est-ce que c'est la question?
Mais la question, c'est simplement en français de nous dire, bon,
Can you say it in French? Because many of the councillors criticized the budget tonight. How would you defend your budget in face of these critics? Thank you so much for your question. I think we have a solid budget. It's fair. It's good for our residents, for the ridership, for our citizens. I'm very happy because 16 members supported the motion. I think this is a very realistic budget and an affordable budget. So for me, I cannot offer free transit or free housing or any other services free of charge. This would not be realistic. We have to be honest with our residents. So more than half of the council supported the budget. Of course, there will always be criticism. But then I answer, what are your proposals? How can we improve the situation in the City of Ottawa? We have many challenges in front of us with COVID-19. It is not now time to have a stable budget, to be pragmatic with Budget 2022. That's the reason why I support the work done by our staff. The members of my office, they work with the residents, and I think that the budget is realistic. And we're facing many challenges. And the most important challenge right now for everyone around the world is COVID-19. I have a follow-up question. I have a question for Madame Renée Amilcar. So today decisions were taken with the OC Transpo budget. What's your reaction on that? First of all, this is a teamwork. Of course, I've not been here for a long time within OC Transpo, but I was well briefed. And I think that on the strategic plan and what was decided in terms of budget, I accept that decision today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine. This is the end of the media availability tonight.